here's the tear down on this formula and how it works. As you can see, the formula is made up of a combination of functions, named range, and certain references, cell references. So we're going to talk through those three items and how they are coming together to make this work. So I have created a table over here to demonstrate how this VLOOKUP function is helping this formula achieve its aim. VLOOKUP helps to respond to table queries such as this. For instance, the VLOOKUP will answer what is C2 in this example table. And to answer what C2 is, VLOOKUP takes in 4 arguments. It takes in the corresponding item on the row of the first column of that table, which is the first reference. It takes in the entire table range. And of course, on our example here, this B corresponds with B4, which is the name of the first city, Abuja. It takes in mileage. Mileage, as you recall, is the named range that corresponds with the entire table that we are querying. And then it takes in the column index number. So VLOOKUP wants to know what is 3. That is, what number is the column that we want to get the information from in the table. And then it takes in the last argument, which is, do we want a partial match or an exact match? Because we want an exact match, we have selected false. So the third argument, which is the column index number, is what match is helping us answer here. The match function is helping us answer. Because we want this column index number to be dynamic and to move, because we have several cities to move through. We have to move through 16 cities. And the formula will not be as valuable as it is if we have to add a new column index number for each city. The match function helps us make this column index number dynamic, as what it does is that before I go into what match the match function is doing here, I'll speak to what match function normally does. The match function normally returns the relative position of an item in a list. So it looks at a list, it orders the list from 1, 2, 3, 4 to the end, and if you ask for any item on the list, it will return the position, the relative position on the list. For instance, on this list that we have here, we have Bauchi as number 4. So let's do an example of a match formula requesting for what position Bauchi is on the list. So this is how the match formula would go. It will be equals to match, open brackets, Bauchi. You can spell out Bauchi or just refer to Bauchi in the list. In this list, so I want to know what position Bauchi is in this list, and I want an exact match. That's why I put in 0. And of course, the answer it's going to give us is 4, because Bauchi is the 4th item on the list. So just to see how this works, it always responds to the range that it's giving to you. So we selected this entire range starting from row 4 to row 19. For instance, what if we started this range from 5? See the results? On this new range, the Bauchi is now the 3rd item on the list, so the number changes to 3. So you always need to select the entire range that you want it to work with. And because we need to be specific on that range, if not, the column number will change. In the cell referencing for our match example here, we used absolute cell references. So the column and row is locked for A1 to QK1. A1 to QK1 corresponds with the column headers for our table. That's it right there, A1 to QK1. So for each of our 16 cities, we're using match to get out what is the position of Akure, of Ibadan, of Bauchi, of Enugu out of this list of 453 cities. And we use it every time to get out that relative number, and that number forms the column index of our function. So that is how VLOOKUP and match works for this formula. I'm going to speak to the cell references now. We use a mixture of absolute cell references and mixed cell references to ensure that this formula is set up one time and it works wherever you drag it to, whether to the right or downwards. So the cell references are what makes that magic happen. I've spoken about the absolute cell reference. So the absolute cell reference is locked on both the column. So the sign of the lock is the $sign. So you can see a $sign in front of the column reference, $sign in front of the row reference, $sign in front of the column reference, $sign in front of the row reference. So it's absolute, it's locked on both sides of both the row and the column. And it's absolute because we need that relative position to stay the same every time, no matter what direction we drag the formula. Remember what happened when we changed the row reference from starting from B4 to B5. You remember what happened to the column? We don't want that to happen. So we lock the range for the match function. It's locked both ways, it's absolute. This is set up in a mixed way such that the column is locked but the row is free. This is also set up in a mixed way, but in this format, the column is free but the row is locked. And what that means is, no matter where we drag our formula to, we want it to always be locked to column B. We always want it to refer to this list here. And no matter where we drag our formula, we always want it to refer to row 3. So if we had made this like an absolute formula, $C$3, anywhere when we drag it, when we move away from Abuja and we move to Akure, you'll find out that it's still referencing Abuja. So let me show you an example here. Let me tweak this formula and then show you what would happen if we had mistakenly made that an absolute formula. It looks like it's good here, but when I drag it here, you see it's giving 0 back because it's still referring to Abuja on C3. Same thing is happening here. It's still referring to Abuja on C3. So we make it mixed. That's the same phenomenon that you will see if you locked B4 as well. So the mixed reference, the combination of the mixed reference and the absolute reference helps this formula to work exactly the way it needs to work in a matrix and to power the matrix. So that is the explanation of this formula that helps extract data from a matrix, from a bigger matrix into a smaller matrix. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you next time. Catch you next time on another video.